I think it's a really deep-seated issue that kind of does go back to residential school. A lot of our people were taught that the proper way to deal with things was to just not say anything at all. You can see how it affects the youth even today.
Our people and our nations have been affected. And I don't see how anybody could really wrap their minds around how a nation of people could just simply forget and move on and say, you won't have symptoms from this. It's just get over it. It was a long time ago, but the facts are they still exist today.
You know, they were never shown love and how to, nurture their children. How would they really know how to, break those cycles?
I feel it stems a lot from, the lack of healing in our community.
Children lead by example, so if they're subjected to violence throughout their life, then, that's going to be the person that they turn into.
All throughout my entire public school life, I had to deal with bullying, so that was not a lot of fun. I always kind of thought it was more just of I was there at the wrong time. I figure we hope to inform people about the violence that happens.
I think that youth voices should be heard and welcomed in the community. Growing up, I lived in a bit of a domestic violence scenario, and so it's really important for me to share my stories and offer my perspective on these things.
Their voices, because I think the voice is one of the most powerful ways for change.
I feel like a healthy relationship is supposed to be unconditional, supportive, but it's hard to find that sometimes. We need to find a way to come back as a community. This presentation is a big opportunity for me to voice my story. We need to recognize that there are unhealthy partnerships among First Nations people. We know that there's a large number of unhealthy relationships throughout the communities of Canada, but within Aboriginal communities, we have the worst. We don't recognize it, so bringing awareness is huge.
There's the Cara natural that I've been waiting for, right?
Well, I'm
there.
just worried about that conversation.
That was how you did it perfect. The main mission of Real School is to help youth focus on the development of their individual spiritual presence. And it's understanding what that purpose is and then moving forward in the world as a powerful spiritual presence.
And with the Real School program, we teach to process those feelings, process those shyness, and build their confidence to be able to speak out exactly what they need to say, right? And really seeing how, this process really works.
This presentation is something that is challenging for all of the youth, so they wanted to make sure that they were, they got their order, they got their words down together. So having them all, hang out with each other and just feeling each other's vibration, feeling each other's energy, and coming in synchronicity together is really what we've been working on.
David,
What?
we have to go to Grandma's for dinner. Are you ready?
No, I didn't agree to this.
Grandma really wants us to come spend some time with her.
Grandma can wait a little bit longer.
Come on, David.
She can wait.
Okay, that's it.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm turning it off. You're done.
No, don't do this to her. No. What the hell are you doing?
Okay, Mom was right. You totally need an intervention.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Dr. Philomena Show. And today we have an intervention. We've got a family with us today. We have David Hillier and his sister Melanie. And we also have a guest from the community who is an outreach worker and a mother. So please welcome, and with a warm round of applause, our guests on Dr. Philomena. So Kara is our mother and our community outreach worker. Kara, what's your perspective as a mother that knowing that a 10-year-old is playing a game like this?
Well, it's known that in the early years, especially between the ages of 4 and 7, are some of the most crucial times for developing emotion, thought, and feeling in children. If a child is continuously exposed to acts of violence, and they are raised thinking violence is normal, then there's an increased chance that their personality is formed, being either aggressive or numb to violence. Personally, as a mother, I worry about video games forming any part of my child's mind.
Back then, when I was a child, I didn't have those tools to say, in those instances to say, well, you have a voice, you got to speak up. And all these other like ceremonies, the rites of passage, I never had that. What happened to me is I eventually got into a point where I was being bullied on a daily basis. And so as time progressed, I became not just the abused, but I became the abuser myself because I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to deal with these issues I was facing. The moment I was introduced to the medicines, that's where my transition happened. I would say that I'm fortunate to being able to carry myself in a good way, in a good manner, with a good mind, good heart. I think I've come a long ways in my growth and development. I was able to get in touch with my inner self, my spirit, my mind, body, and my soul. I was able to do that through culture. There could be some really good contributions that we had in that history that'll make us even more proud to be who we are today. And I think that's what we need to emphasize on, is how to have our youth and our children to be proud of who they are, to know who they are, and to be able to go out in the world and hold their heads up high as they walk.
The youth need to learn so that we can continue it on to our children and then our grandchildren and so on and so forth, because we want it to continue. It's something we don't want to lose.
Today about somebody was talking about like all these stories and like the traditional stories and and how these relationships formed from these traditional stories and things, and I was like, I want to know more. Like I was sitting there like, it's so unfair that it's taken me this long to hear any of this. Like I crave it. I just want to suck it all up. So I was like sitting there and I'm like, I gotta like bring that into this because I've not been able to access these stories and these traditional histories that I want to know. I need to write that down.
That's awesome. And you're going to add that, you're adding that, right? Into
Yes,
your piece?
I'm going to write it down. Yeah.
Okay, good. That's beautiful.
To give a little bit of background, I grew up in a really emotionally and physically abusive household, but it was kind of translated through generations, and it kind of, I believe, stems from when my grandmother lost her status as a Mohawk woman, both by the government and kind of ousted by community members when she married my German Dutch grandfather. My mother also married a non-Native man, so none of us have been able to really engage with our heritage and being separated and isolated off of reserve. After my parents divorced when I was about 11, we all moved back to the reserve and we started to regain our connection. The Indigenous teachings really, really feel like they're a part of me, so when I hear them, I crave to learn even more, and I really want to reclaim that part of my identity, which is really exciting, actually. I get asked questions all the time, which is cool.
We
have
can
like
go,
10 minutes.
You can go, yeah, so each of these points has just under an hour, so you got 45 seconds. Do you want a time?
Well, yeah, because that point is real at home for me. But I wanted to obviously bring a point of that we need to recognize it, acknowledge it, blah, 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 blah. But I want to be
Time in now.
Personally, I've gone through that, and it was never acknowledged. So lateral violence is a big part of the violence that exists in our communities, our families, and our organizations, and it strongly affects the wellness of our community. It's not uncommon for people to injure one another with acts of gossiping, blaming, shaming, exhibiting anger towards each other, and showing jealousy towards one another. All of this is strictly out of our own anger and frustration and inability to cope with our own feelings and past experiences. To me, it seems my community is in a constant state of hypervigilance, meaning that we are always protective and defensive of our rights, who they are, whether they're Native enough, how they are living, what they do, and what others think about them. This creates constant feeling of oppression that we experience in every aspect of our lives as Native people. My solution is that we all need to acknowledge, and there needs to be a clear definition and understanding that lateral violence is dominant in our community. That lateral violence is the connection of loss of our pride to ourselves. Our traditional teachings can help bring us together to develop the skills to create healthy communities. I believe violence is a symptom of how someone was brought up, how someone was treated, what they think is okay and what is right. On Native communities being oppressed, we take on a lot of pain and we give it off to our family, which then ultimately goes throughout our community. I actually have a non-native husband. When I bring him to the community, he's not accepted. My child is seen as less. And there's no sense of acceptance. I grew up in a community where we always accepted people, and there was never fear of that. And now being an adult and seeing it, it's painful. We're supposed to be doing this together, not being standing on different sides. We're very divided, and I don't want our children growing up like that.
As nations, we need to heal, that the intergenerational trauma from the residential schools and healthy relationships is really important to ending these forms of violence. But I think that starts within yourself. Build a healthy relationship with yourself.
To the moment we start becoming true to ourselves and being able to understand how we can be more whole as a person and an individual, we can harness the energy that we all hold as a spirit, as a being. And that energy deflects outwards, and it gets bigger, and you radiate more. And the moment that starts happening, because we're complete and we're in tune with all of creation, and we can actually spread that energy out to our family, our friends, and that gets picked up. It's contagious. And the moment it comes to a community, it can spread out to the rest of the world.
I want you to just give it all a big round of applause for these youth. It took a lot for them, a lot of courage to step up here, challenge themselves to get out of their comfort zone, to sit up here and share with you. It's definitely a big thing for them. It's a big thing for all of us. We speak for all youth. This is why we're here.